Okay, so this is day 2 of Mishlei 1414, and we had quite the translation festival yesterday. The pasuk says, "Midrachav Yisba Soog Lev Ume'alav Ish Tov." So our translation was, "From his ways the backsliding of heart will be satisfied, and from upon him a good man." Sadigon said for the first half, ultimately the ways of the person who has impurities of heart or a counterfeit heart will be many in his eyes, and he will be disgusted by them. So what led him to that translation was sug can either mean to go backwards, or it can also mean an impurity, like sigim in kesef. So he took it as impurities, and then yisba means to satiate, but Kafich thinks that Sadigon didn't like the idea that you could be satiated with ways. So he said, like, fed up in terms of there's too many, and also fed up in terms of the connotation of like being disgusted. Targum said, "From his ways the wayward heart will be satisfied, but a good man will be satisfied from his fear." And we said that that's fear of God. Oren asked like where the Targum gets that from, and I theorized that either that's just his interpretation, or he had a different girsa. Or when I was talking with ChatGPT about this yesterday, then it suggested that Me'alav could be translated as from above, which I'm not exactly sure if that works out with biblical Hebrew. But if that were the case, then it would be like, from God. And then once you're talking about God, then the Targum is going to translate it to fear of God, because that's the Targum move. Our scroll says, "A wayward heart will be satisfied with its ways, but a good man will take leave of him." Rav Hirsch says, "He who is of a straying heart seeks satisfaction from his ways, but a good man from his own person." And Alter says, "From his ways, the impure of heart is sated, and the good man from his deeds." Okay. Questions were, what does derech mean in this context? And what are these darche Soog Lev? 2, what is meant by sevilla in this context? Does it mean that his needs are met, which would be a positive connotation, or does it mean that he has so many that he's disgusted, which is a negative connotation, or is it some other meaning? 3, what does sug mean? Does it mean wayward or impure or something else? 4, what is the antecedent of the pronoun me'alav, from upon him? Who's the him? Is it the Soog Lev? Is it the ish tov? Is it Hashem, or is it someone else? 5, what are the opposites, or are there even opposites here? Specifically, the Soog Lev and the ish tov, are they opposites? And if so, why does it express it that way? Why not say ish ra or yashar lev or something, something to those effects? 6, what is it saying about the ish tov? 7, who is the intended audience? 8, what's the practical application? 9, what is the subject? And 10, what the heck is this pasuk talking about? So we had a couple approaches. We had Ariel, who said that it is talking about how the Soog Lev seeks satisfaction. So Soog Lev, he said, means someone who is involved with taiva. So either that's wayward heart, that heart is like going to taiva, or maybe you could say that is the impurities of the heart. He's going to try to be satisfied from his drachav, his taiva seeking ways, and he might get some of the satisfaction, but he won't get it totally. And the ish tov, though, will actually be satisfied by yiras Hashem. Okay, and I know we came back to that in a little while. Okay, then David said that it's a story time pasuk, that from the ways of a person who follows Mishlei, the backsliding of heart will be satisfied. So in other words, you start off with being led by your taivas or having bad desires or whatever, but if you apply Mishlei will teach you to seek out your desires intelligently, and then you'll start realizing that there are consequences, and then you'll avoid the consequences, and then you'll refine your desires, and eventually you'll become an ish tov. And that's what the pasuk is saying. So it's really describing like Mishlei's approach to reforming your decision-making and your midos. Isaac said, the Soog Lev seeks satisfaction from his ways, which means the results of his actions, whereas the ish tov derives satisfaction from himself. Me'alav, that's how Rav Hirsch read it, which is the decision-making. And therefore, he will actually become satisfied, because as long as he makes a good decision, making a good decision is entirely within your control. The results are not. So if you focus on getting your satisfaction from the good decisions themselves, you'll always be satisfied. But if you look to your results, to the outcomes of your decisions for satisfaction, then it's not guaranteed. And then Oren said at the very end that drachav is from the actions and me'alav is from the person he is. So it's just a smoother reading of the pasuk itself. Okay, good. Okay. Anyone have any other thoughts before we go into Metzudas David and then the Rabbeinu Yonah? Okay, then. All right. So we read the Metzudas David yesterday, but we did not work on it. So let's read it again. So he says, Soog Lev. Can I not zoom in with my fingers anymore on this new computer? Okay. Soog Lev, Halev hanisog me Hashem. The heart that turns away from Hashem, Yisba midrachav, he will be satisfied with his ways, ki gemulo kimifalo. When he gets recompense, when he gets retribution according to his actions. Umialav, and from away from him, the Be'es yikabel hagmul, when that guy gets his punishment, yihye ish tov nifra me'alav, the good man will separate from him, labal yihye nilka imo, so as to not be stricken with it. Okay, so that is like how Art Scroll translated it. No, sorry, I keep on saying that. It's the end. Anyway, so let me just actually type out the Metzudas David here. So Metzudas David is saying, the backsliding, sorry, not the backsliding, one who turns his heart away from Hashem will get what he deserves, and the good man will separate himself from that bad guy when the latter gets punished. Okay, so the question is, what is the, and I think this is actually a good, Ariel either, oh yeah, he did ask this, okay. What is the subject? So this is a good time to exercise that principle here. So what is the subject of the pasuk according to Metzudas David?
Well, what do you mean by that?
So Rabbi Moskowitz always asks the question, what is the subject? Because it forces you to, it's kind of like a way to answer what's the practical application, who's the intended audience, and what's the scenario, but in one shot. So for example, my favorite example of this is, I'm just going to quote this because this is the idea when I first heard this from Rabbi Moskowitz, I think, or maybe it's when I first clicked. We did this puzzle last year. On. Okay, Mishlei 22:13 says, Amar Atzel Ari Bachutz Pesok Rechovos Eratzeach. The lazy person says, there's a lion outside, I will be slaughtered in the streets. Okay, so when you look at this pasuk, you might assume that the pasuk is about laziness, right? And you could define this as a pasuk about laziness. However, Rabbi Moskowitz said, no, it really is a pasuk about rationalization, that the lazy person is coming up with these far-fetched excuses for why he can't go out, saying that there's lions roaming around outside, he's going to get slaughtered, which is our equivalent of that is I'm going to get hit by a plane if I leave my door. Yeah, sometimes there are planes that crash and kill people, but it's just not something that you should actually factor in. So too, back then, lions did not run around in cities, so maybe you'll have a case where a lion breaks out of the zoo. So the point though is that if you define this as, you could learn the subject as being about a lazy person, and the question is what is it telling you about him, or you can learn it about rationalizations, and it's just using lazy person as an example, and depending on how you frame the subject, you'll have a different focus in the idea. So here, for example, in the ideas that we came up with, so Ariel's interpretation was that this is a life of taiva, and according to David, the subject is the derech of Mishlei. According to Isaac and Oren, the subject is I guess where in your decision making you get your satisfaction from. So I'd say according to David, what is the subject? Yeah, Isaac.
Before we even get into the subject, is this even true?
Is it even true? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, your audio just got a little bad. Sorry, say again?
Okay, yeah, I'll explain the context of that.
Sure.
Which is that I've learned other things about how when the Rasha is punished, people who are close to him will get caught up in the punishment,
right?
And they won't be able to separate.
Right. Oh no. So I think that is what this is saying. I think it's saying that he should.
It's saying that he said the Ish Tov will separate when the Soog Lev gets his punishment.
Should separate himself from the bad guy when later gets punished.
Well, shouldn't he separate before, because otherwise he's going to get caught up in the punishment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think that's what this is saying. Meaning this is telling him that he should separate from the guy so he doesn't get caught up. Because, yeah, if he's getting punished now, it's too late.
Yeah, it sounded like it's when he gets punished, though.
I didn't read it that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a difficult way to read it.
Yeah.
All Yihya Nilkim, so as not to get punished with him. To me, this is future tense.
Oh, yeah, fine. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
What's the why would a good man be near a bad guy anyway?
So I think the answer to that is either there is a specific hava mina or a specific circumstance in which he should be with him, or this is saying the extent to which you should separate from him, you know? But I think what we're let's just name the subject here. So what is the subject? Yeah. I mean, I think you guys are all saying it.
You should separate from someone.
Yeah. Harchek mishachin ra, as it says in Pirkei Avos, right? Distancing yourself, or I guess harchaka mishachin ra.
Well, this is all Tefilah Parsha, arguably.
So I think this is actually more shachin ra than tischaber, because tischaber is a closer. My understanding of tischaber is like it's a actual relationship, whereas this seems to be proximity.
Okay.
From a bad neighbor, right? I at least let me put it this way: whenever you see both of them together, shachin ra versus chaver ra, then chaver ra is an actual relationship, where shachin ra is no relationship, but you're just like in the proximity. And I feel like that's the vibe I'm getting from this pasuk. Yeah. So I think the question here is, so like, what's the chiddush, right? You know. And I think that's tied up with your question, like, why would you be near a bad person anyway? So what would you say? Like, what's the havmina? What's the bad decision here? You know? Yeah.
Plenty of reasons why we'd be near.
I think so also. Yeah.
Right. Like, first of all, I'm trying to help him. Also, second,
right.
Just like maybe you just work with him. Or something.
Yeah. Right. There's certain circumstances, right? You can't always choose these things, right? Yeah.
My question is, you know, like, meaning, how do you know at what point to separate before everything goes
I think that's exactly what this is saying. Is it saying that like you should always be vigilant? You know, it's only a matter of time before a Soog Lev gets what he deserves. Okay, and it's going to be different depending on like what type of Soog Lev he is, right? Like Sodom and Amorah, you know, were that was a society of Soog Lev, and God decreed a punishment of destroying the whole city. You know, Nineveh got 40-day warning. The Mabul got 120 days. You know, Haman. You know, like I don't know I forgot how long it was between his rise to power and his downfall. You know, so like there's not going to be a set timeline, but like I think the inevitability is the premise of the pasuk, and like you should be on the lookout for that and take caution. Isaac.
Can you pause the recording?
Yeah. Wait, hold on a second. I forgot how to do this. Pause recording. Yeah, so there was an example given about about Jeffrey Epstein, and we're seeing now, obviously he got, you know, what he deserved, but we're seeing every single person who was associated with him or who was like on the, you said flight logs? Yeah, right. Whose name was logged in conjunction with him is getting scrutinized. And like, you don't necessarily know whether that person, look, either the person did something, in which case they're going to get caught, even if they didn't do it, you know, as bad as what he did. And if they didn't do anything, then they're going to get their reputation endangered or ruined because of that as well. Yeah. Arya?
Yeah, maybe you could say that. I think the second half of the pasuk, you know, is according to the so it's going to teach you that, like, look, like you have to recognize, you know, the reality of the circumstances. Like, you know, this guy is a rusher or whatever, whoever he is, a bad guy who's going to be in trouble. You have to like deal like be involved with him with caution and like you know, also like make sure that you have this reality that things go down, so you have to do what you do necessarily to distance yourself from him when those things happen.
Right. Yeah, I think that is the practical advice. I want to just add here that I think there's another emotional pitfall here, which is that, and I'm speaking as someone who was a goody two shoes, like I always followed all the rules growing up. I think there is a feeling that people who are not violating rules sometimes feel, which is I'm not doing anything wrong, therefore I'm not going to get punished. And what this is saying is you can get punished. I'm saying mishleically or even hashgachically, simply by proximity to the Russia. And so don't feel like you have an immunity simply because of your conduct. Yeah. Okay, that's a good interpretation. I just want to see if this also answers any of the other questions that we asked here. Oh, I like the Ish Tov and Soog. Okay, Soog Lev is still a little weird. But I like the fact that it's using a generic term for Ish Tov, because this is not talking about a specific Mishleic archetype like a tzaddik or a chacham, just any person who's not, who's not like in the bad category, so it works out like that at least. Okay, let's do Rabbeinu Yonah, and this is a juicy Rabbeinu Yonah. Oh, did I give you you got, okay. Yeah, juicy Rabbeinu Yonah here, okay. Rabbeinu Yonah actually unpacks this Mishleic archetype of the Soog Lev, which I don't even know if the Soog Lev appears anywhere else in Mishlei. Oh, okay. Maybe there's some setting here. I used to be able to use my touch screen for.
I mean, is this a touch screen?
It is, yeah. Like I could do that, but I can't. Oh, I can't. That's weird. Maybe just sensitivity is different. Okay. All right. So, Midrach Vispa Soog Lev, Umielav Ishtov. Soog Lev hu ha'ikesh v'hanishan la'olam al Machshavto. Okay. As I'm reading this, by the way, form in your mind what English term or label or description you would give this guy. So this is someone who is stubborn and always relies on his own thinking. V'lo yakshiv l'divrei zulaso. He does not pay attention to other people's words. Lihisbonin ha'im tovim heim b'dvarav. To think about whether the other person's words are better than his words. Ulashaklam, and to weigh them in his mind. Ulahaniach dvarav, and to leave aside his words, meaning to like retract. When he analyzes from the other person's words a reasoning that contradicts his words. Ubal Hamida Hazos, the person who has this trait, who sava la'olam mimasav, will always be satisfied with his actions, his own actions. V'noche rucha b'minhagav inyanav, and his spirit will be at ease about his own behaviors and affairs. Because he doesn't see any deficiency in his intellect or any imperfection in his mind or his knowledge. Is he not perfect in his own eyes? Since he doesn't need, this is sarcastic, he doesn't need any help from another person's intellect or from anyone else's advice. Let's go on. The only place he will find a contradiction to his words is from his own investigations, his own understanding. Okay, meaning this guy is not totally closed to any being wrong. It's just that he doesn't listen to anybody else. Okay, but if he himself discovers an error from his own reasoning, then he will retract. V'od teda. Furthermore, you should know ki bal hamida hazos inenu bal mechkar le'olam. Okay, you should also know that a guy who has this mida is not going to be a researcher. Okay, someone who's characterized by doing investigation. Ki barov ha'pa'amim. In many cases, majority of cases, Yishan al ha'ole el ha'ole al rucho rishona. He'll just rely on the first thing that occurs to him. V'lo yachkor im yesh lahashiv machshavto achor. And he will not investigate to see whether he should leave aside his own thoughts. Kibal, or to like retract from his thoughts. Kibal hamechkar, someone who is a researcher, kamo shiamo vishtado lahashki b'machshavto al tzidei ha'iyun ulahakir emes. Just as he toils and strives to encircle with his mind all aspects of analysis in order to recognize the truth. Gam kain nichsof nichsaf lehe'azer be'iyun zulaso. He will also yearn to be assisted through another person's analysis. Ulahakir hanachona mi bein ha'iyun, and then to discern what is proper from among the like mutual analysis. Okay, so let's stop here for a second. How do you describe this midah? Like what good English terms do we have for this midah here?
Arrogance.
It's more narrow than arrogance. It stems from arrogance, but it's way. It's another word for arrogance. Narrow-minded is better. I think there's a better term we have.
That's changed.
Cheating. Anyone?
It's another word. Bigoted?
No, of course not.
Dude, this is your friend here.
No, that you gotta use your own mind, Ariel. Don't you're it's like one of the you know what the old version of this is. I can't believe it's old already. It's like when I'm in teaching Mishlei to like first time students, and we say like what is the definition of a chacham, and then they just look it up in the dictionary. Like you're not only are you gonna like there's so many bad habits.
All right, I have another few words. Intolerant.
I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm not gonna listen to you. Fine. Yeah. So I think the subject of the pasuk is narrow-mindedness, or closed-mindedness. Okay. So closed-mindedness is, I mean, there might be better words than that, but like closed-mindedness, meaning that he's just not interested in anyone else's thinking. Okay. He doesn't want to listen to other people. He doesn't want to consider whether the possibility of being like refuted by other people. And what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying is that, so that's the definition of Soog Lev. Okay, so that's not the idea. That's the person we're talking about. Okay, then what's the chiddush in the first half is Yisba Midrachav. He'll be satisfied by his own actions. So don't just think that this is going to be the symptoms and consequences are going to be in the intellectual realm. He's not going to there's going to be a certain paralysis in terms of his decision-making. Not decision-making process, that means something else. There's going to be a certain stagnation in his like development because he's not going to ever like consider that he's doing anything in a wrong way. Okay, so that's the first half. But then he goes, Ume'alav ish tov, hamem me'alav, the mem and me'alav Torah al haharchakav appears. So he's going the same way as Metzudas David, that the mem indicates distance and separation. Vatam, the reason me'alav yirchak v'yifrad ish tov, that the good man should distance himself and separate himself from that guy. Ki ha'ikshus me'roa lev. Stubbornness comes from bad midos. Vasher lo yisakesh, and someone who does not make himself stubborn, who noach lahachshiv lahashmiya l'divrei habrios, and he's someone who has an easy time paying attention and listening to other people's words. Ahu yikar ishtov. That guy's called a good man. Who marchik darko mechavra Soog Lev. He should separate himself from the companionship of a Soog Lev. Ki im lo yishma lemoatzosav v'lo yakshiv l'davarav. Because if this guy doesn't listen to his advice and doesn't pay attention to his words, who shomei la'atas yesar hanavonim umakabel datam. Oh, this is interesting. But he, meaning the good guy, does listen to other people's, to the advice of nevonim, of people who have understanding, and he accepts their opinion. Yisna'ehu al kach Soog halev. This is a weird way of taking this. I didn't expect this. The Soog Lev will hate him, will hate the ish tov. The ish tov yisrachik l'olam misinas b'nei adam, and the ish tov should distance himself from people's hatred. Al kin yisrachim from Soog Lev. Therefore, he should separate from Soog Lev. So what do you think compels? So what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying? Let's just summarize Rabbeinu Yonah here. What was it? Is that it? Or? That's it. Yeah. A narrow-minded person will not be open to other people's views and won't even research his own views, because he'll just rely on the first thing that comes to his mind. Okay. The first half teaches us that he will be satisfied with his own actions and will not change his behavior. Okay. The second half is about an ish tov, okay, who is the opposite of who's open-minded, right? Who is open-minded, and this is kind of like the Chacham of Ben Zoma, which is Halomed Mikol Adam. All right, and so this is the weird part. The chiddush of the pasuk is that the ish tov should separate from the Soog Lev, not because he'll be influenced by his midos, but because the Soog Lev will will resent the Ish Tov, and it is in the best interests of the Ish Tov to avoid other people's resentment. Yeah. So to me, I don't know if you think that's also what you also think it's weird, right? That he took it that direction.
I mean, that whole last sentence is weird on both levels. Why would the Soog Lev resent him, and why is it bad for other people to resent you?
Right. Okay. So let's ask both those questions.
That's the easy answer.
The second one, you mean?
Yeah, like why would
Yeah. So let's just ask them. So first of all, the first question is, why did Rabbeinu Yonah take this weird direction? Then there's the question of, why would the Soog Lev resent the Ish Tov? And the Rabbeinu Yonah did verbally answer that, but we need to unpack it. And then, why should you avoid other people's resentment? Before I call on Isaac, I just want to reread the that part of the Rabbeinu Yonah. So regarding question 2, he does say, Ki im lo yishma lemoatzosav v'lo yakshi ledvarav, because even though, I think he's changing pronouns here, even though the Soog Lev will not listen to the advice of the Ish Tov and pay attention to his words, but the Ish Tov shomei la'atzos yeser hanavodim, the Ish Tov listens to the advice of the people who do understand, u'makabel datam, and accepts their opinion, yisna'ihu al kach Soog Lev. So the Soog Lev will hate him for that. So he's hating him for the fact that the Ish Tov is listening to other people. So we still need to answer your question about why, but that's where he's answering. Yeah, Isaac.
I have an explanation about why he should avoid the resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if someone resents you and you know that they do, then there's kind of like a cognitive dissonance there that you're going to feel compelled to try to address.
Okay.
Like you know that this guy hates you, so you need to figure out a way. So you're going to want him not to resent you anymore because you're spending time with this person and you don't want him to resent you. So then you're going to try to do things to make him not resent you, and the only way to do that is to become a worse person, basically.
Okay. So one reason is because being resented creates cognitive dissonance because you want people to like you, and the only way to obtain that from the Soog Lev is to make yourself a worse person. For example, by like agreeing with him or encouraging him or pretending, like masking your own views. Yeah, what were you gonna say, Ariel? Because I think there's an easier answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's just too much. It's training.
Okay, that is another answer.
Deal with that.
Another reason is because it's a draining experience to be resented, to work with someone, to I guess to like associate with someone who resents you.
Toxic environment.
Yeah. Yeah, Isaac.
Also, he might just do bad things to you.
Yeah, I think that's the basic reason. The easiest reason is resentment causes people to do bad things to you, and you should avoid having bad things done to you. Yeah, but what we need to figure out here is the answer to question number 2.
Also, to add to the question,
yeah,
he said that the Soog Lev is doing all this because he just thinks that he's the best, basically.
Yeah.
It's not that he like dislikes open-mindedness per se. He just dislikes it for himself.
Right.
So why would he care if somebody else?
Yeah, right. That's a good question. Yeah. By the way, just to give another possibility for a type of Soog Lev, I think many times it's because of ego and it is self-centered. I do think you could be a Soog Lev for other reasons, though. So, for example, like here's an example. Like, let's say in the political sphere, I think you'll find many more. Okay, I guess this applies both ways. Okay, you could be a Soog Lev as a politically conservative Republican who says, we shouldn't deviate from any values that like we've embraced, and you could be a Soog Lev from being a very, very like hyper progressive liberal who's like doesn't want to even think about anything that like goes against like the party line, So I think Soog Lev, maybe those ultimately come from arrogance as well, but I think Soog Lev, or you could be like, let's say like just, like an old curmudgeon, who's set in your ways, So I think Soog Lev can come from different sources. Yeah.
Yeah, I think here, I mean, if this guy's closed-minded or or whatever, like he's not going to see like a lot of success, stemming from him. But like the other guy is open-minded.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's gonna naturally see results. It's actually, and like the Soog Lev is stemming from like jealousy, like he's gonna resent his success.
Yeah.
And okay, now the question is like, okay, fine, so why doesn't he change his behavior?
Right.
Well, it's like you can't control being jealous, It's
yeah.
like,
okay. So that's actually very interesting because that might explain why the Rabbeinu Yonah says he's not going to change his behavior. In other words, the Soog Lev, like if you were, okay, I don't know exactly how we would call this, but let's say you're attached to some approach that doesn't give you success, but you're open-minded. And you see another guy who's succeeding and you're jealous of him. So then, since you're not closed-minded, you can change your path to success. This guy, the midah that makes him different from the guy who's succeeding also prevents him from changing. Yeah, okay, good. I think that's a great answer. So, so odds are that the Ish Tov will find greater success, okay? And I think also will be liked by those who work with him. I think that's another thing that's just going to happen, okay? The Soog Lev will resent him for this, and instead of changing his own behaviors, and will be incapable of changing his own behaviors because of his Soog Lev-ness. Yeah.
This reminds me of Haman.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, how so?
Just like the absolute stubbornness and arrogance and sort of like totally in his own world.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that was stemming from another reason though. He was, I think he was more close-minded because he usually just had like a specific agenda, and
right.
It was just blinding.
Right. I mean, I can see how you associate the Haman. I don't see evidence specifically of the like being closed to other people's opinions. I do think it was more just the general Russia's megalomania of like, I view the world, I have a certain plan that involves me at the top and I can't see past that plan.
And then it's going to result in being another areas.
Right.
The source of
it. Yeah. I do think though that Rishaim are prone to this. I think I think there are Rishaim. So it's very interesting. There are Rishaim who are, when it comes to their ambitions, they have a narrow path, but when it comes to how to achieve those ambitions, then they are open-minded. So for example, in the Machlokas about whether Achashverosh was a Rasha or not, everyone holds that he was open to advice. Like that's basically all of the behaviors he does throughout the story are asking people for advice, So he's not closed-minded, even if he is a megalomaniac. Yeah, Yitzi.
I just the example that I associate to. I don't know if this is a perfect analogy, but like in a workplace when you have just this is the way we've always done it,
right?
And then there's just like this, and then you have some newcomer that comes in and he's open-minded and he's and people are like resentful. Like, what does he see? We know this. What have we been doing this? And what does he see that we don't see?
Yeah.
So it's context dependent in a way sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. The reason why I like that example is because, okay, so like I've been in similar positions as well. So I think maybe this is another example of the tendency I pointed out in applying the Metzudas David to me, but like. I think that like when I first started teaching, I was very gung-ho about like being anti-school, and anti like and I still am, but not as in everyone else's faces, but I like very, very into like education reform. And I was convinced that I was right. And I was convinced that they were stubborn. But what I didn't factor in is how much resentment it would provoke on the part of like my colleagues and like administrators if I'm like very in your face about like tests are evil and all this other, so I like I can definitely see how this would apply to me. I think this I'm starting to answer the question number one, which is why does Rabbeinu Yonah take this? So I think like the way we explained it, the Ish Tov is distancing himself because he'll be influenced. Oh no, we didn't take any of that approach. What am I saying? Sorry. the good midah of the Ish Tov, i.e. His open-mindedness.
Loving Mikoladam.
Yeah, right.
That's
mindedness. Is this?
Someone said it's a
Oh, it's a hyphen.
prerequisite
Okay.
inside,
I think does will make him immune to the closed-mindedness of grumble. Oh, that is one word. Why is that the case? Okay, fine. The closed-mindedness of the Soog Lev. Okay. In other words, like I don't think if you're a really open-minded person, then like if you are actually practicing this, if you're let's say you're isolated with let's say like it's a marriage, let's say like you marry someone who's closed-minded, then it might rub off on you. But if you are a practicing chacham, a practicing lomi mikol adam, I don't see how just having a closed-minded person in your workplace is going to make you closed-minded. So that's why I think Rabbeinu Yonah. So for this reason, Rabbeinu Yonah, okay, and truthfully Metzudas David looks for ways that there will be external harm to the Ish Tov as a consequence of the Soog Lev. Yeah, Warren.
Well, what exactly is the practical advice?
The practical,
he's just saying like this is what happens.
Right. I think
it's not saying it's not like decision.
Yeah. So he takes the same practical decision making as the Metzudas David, that he should distance himself from Soog Lev. And I think it's very, like, if you're an open-minded person, I think it's very easy to say, well, look, that guy's closed-minded, so fine, he's going to suffer. But like, I'm open-minded, I'm going to be fine. But you should be on the lookout that guy's going to hate you, and you should either avoid being in a situation like that, or at least take precaution against that. It is a very narrow application, but it fits in with the words. Like if you take Me'alav as he should distance himself. Yeah.
All right, I have a couple of points.
Yeah.
One point is, so if someone is open-minded, will he also inevitably not be resentful of other people?
Good question. I mean, he won't be resentful of other people based on their opinions, I think. Meaning he'll recognize, like, in the same way that I think things through and come to my own conclusions, so too, like, this person will,
Now, here's another question. All right. So in any learning or harusa or any area, there will always be like a back and forth. And at a certain point, like in order to like further your own idea, you have to you have to be a little bit closed-minded so that you can defend your idea. And for sure. So at what point would you say that it's totally closed-minded versus like
right? So the question, right? So in other words, just to reframe the question, is how do you, I guess, balance? How do you balance like intellectual integrity with open-mindedness? Like integrity meaning like following your own views.
And what's the practical advice if you see yourself in a specific area where you are closed-minded, or like how do you notice it?
Right. That's a good question as well.
Because like this is also good said and done, but I don't think everyone here in this room is closed-minded in the majority of the cases.
Right. Yeah. Right. But it does come up. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just to be clear, I don't think our pasuk is answering that, but even though it's related to the subject, right? Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to be clear that I don't think the pasuk is telling you how to do that. Yeah, I mean, this is what Rabbi Moskowitz always used to attribute to Saad Yugon, which I don't know if he saw this in Saad Yugon explicitly, or if this is Rabbi Moskowitz's way of interpreting the whole Hakdama of Saad Yugon. But Rabbi Moskowitz would always say you have to have 100% conviction in what is clear to your own mind, but enough intellectual humility to back down when shown to be wrong, which implies that you should also be willing to like listen and subject your ideas to critique. So yeah, how do you do that? I mean, I think the key has to be in terms of the like, there is a certain mental move where you like set aside your opinion in order to try to put yourself in the other person's mental shoes.
Is that mental or emotional?
It's both. I think intellectually, it's striving to realize that the way my mind is seeing things is not the only way. And then it's also guarding against emotional bias, either emotional bias from the idea or emotional bias from the fact that it's your baby, that's your idea, Yeah, I want to think about that some more. Yeah. Okay, let's really quickly look at I'm kind of curious. I didn't see the Malbim. I'm curious about what the Malbim says. And if it's too long, then we'll skip it and do someone else. Because we only have 2 minutes. Malbim, because I feel like the Malbim might have like a fun idea of Soog Lev. Okay, Malbim. It's not Malbim here. Malbim. Oh, very short. Whoa, short Malbim. That's rare. Midrachav yispa Soog Lev umelav ishtov. Soog Lev ratzalom mi shalibo nasog. So someone whose heart is backwards or wayward. Ratzalom shalibo bilti maskim im maasehu. Oh, so he's a hypocrite. His heart is not in line with his actions. Ki margish she'ein darcho tova. Oh, this is another answer to the Rabbeinu Yonah question. He senses that his way is not good. Okay, I just want to add this here. I think this is another reason why the additionally, the Soog Lev might sense on some level that he's being closed-minded, and be jealous of the fact that he can't break out of it. Yeah, I think that does require certain honesty to have, but I do think that like, I don't know, maybe I'm just overly optimistic about the human race. I feel like everyone sees that like if you ask someone, would you rather be open-minded or closed-minded? Everyone's going to say, I'd rather be open-minded, but they'll just claim that like, well, that guy's too open-minded, or like, I don't want to be open-minded about that. So I think they when you're emotionally digging in your heels, you see on some level like, okay, I'm biased here, but then kolapolso, bumumoposo that you project on the other guy, Okay, but anyway, so that's what the Malbim is saying here. He's saying that this guy, margi she'ein darcho tova, he senses that his way is not good. Kamo shekasav lev yodea maras nafsho. Oh, that's how he explains the pasuk earlier. Like he says, a heart knows its own bitterness, which I guess he's saying is his own imperfections. Or maybe nefesh, literally his own like mental. No, he's not saying nefesh like that. Gam bischok yikaf lev. Okay, I guess he's taking this as in line with all these pasukim we've been doing. Also, ingesting the heart is pain. Chozos yispa midrachav, but never with all this, he's satisfied with his ways. Achar sheholech b'darchei maves yispa midrachav yikabel onsho. He's going on the ways of death, and he will be stated with his own ways, and he'll receive his punishment. You see how he just wove together all of the previous psukim. Okay. Alkein mi'alav yisog ish tova. So he says, he adds in the word yisog. From him, the ish tov should turn away. So that's interesting. So he's learning midrachav yispa Soog Lev. The guy who turns away from his own heart will be satisfied, will get his just deserts. And from the good man will turn away from him. Ishtov yit, like the kids say. V'yisog me'alav lo levad libo yisog rak kulo yisog v'yit mimenu v'lo yasek masav. Okay, so he's going to avoid him entirely. So he doesn't really elaborate on this. Okay, all right, I got to stop now. But I think this is really good for the Metzudas David and the Rabbeinu Yonah. So Metzudas David was basically saying, don't find yourself in a situation where you get the collateral damage when the guy who turns away from Hashem gets his punishments, and then the Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, you might be open-minded, but you should, and you might not be in danger of being closed-minded, but avoid the guy who is closed-minded because he's going to hate you and is going to like take it out on you, or is going to or you're gonna, or if you take Isaac's way, then you're gonna like find some way to like try to appease him. Okay, good ideas.
So to talk about someone everyone